Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Passive Income MBA, Investing in Real Estate Syndications. Today, I'm so excited to have my friend Sam Wilson on. Sam, great to have you.
Hey, Suja, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Well, everyone, Sam is an active investor in self-storage, parking, multifamily apartments, RV parks, and single-family homes. He hosts the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate podcast, where he interviews real estate experts to give listeners the tips, tools, and tricks to scale their investment portfolio. Sam holds his bachelor's degree in business finance from the University of Memphis and holds his real estate license in Tennessee. In addition to his years of real estate experience, he also has a diverse background in business ownership, building construction, and management. Well, it's so great to have you here, Sam. I'd love for you to start us off by taking us back in time and giving us a brief overview of where you started in your journey in real estate and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is a funny story. I've told it on several other shows, but the short of it is I never planned on getting into real estate. I sold a business in 2012 and had that confluence of time and money. At least for me, what was money then had that intersection of time and money in my life, which, those are two things that don't usually go hand in hand. You've got loads of time, you're broke, or you've got loads of money, but you have no time to spend it because you're working your rear end off. So I sold a business, had time and money on my hands, and had absolutely no plan other than head south. So I headed south. I live now in Tennessee, which almost isn't far enough south. It still gets cold here. I hate the cold and didn't know what to do. The short story is one day I woke up, we were living in a town in Middle Tennessee, and I woke up one morning and I didn't know anything about real estate, but was actively just kind of trying to figure out my next move, and saw a foreclosure auction coming up, which they used to list those attorneys here in Tennessee used to list the foreclosure listings on their personal websites. And this particular attorney listed with the opening bid. And I saw the price, I saw the address, and I said, oh crap, that's like 2 hours, or not 2 hours, that's like 2 miles from here. So I looked it up on Google Maps, and I'm like, and this was, 2013, or at least I think I looked up on Google Maps. Maybe I didn't. Looked up some sort of map software online. I said, oh, I'm gonna go see this. So I drove over there. It was vacant. It was unlocked, and I walked through the house, and I'm like, okay, I'll take this. The background in building construction, I knew enough about houses that, I wasn't scared that it was waist deep in trash. It still had good bones. So I went back home and I looked at my wife and I said, hey, Elizabeth, do you mind if I buy a house today? And she goes, no. 2 hours later, I owned a house. So now I'm in the real estate business. We fixed and flipped that house. I made a pile of money on it. And suddenly I was like, wait, I did it once. I can just keep doing it. And so I did. And here we are 8 years later, still up to our necks in real estate, and the rest is history. So that's the short version.
um, that's super awesome, Sam. And clearly, you have a certain amount of gumption to be able to just take something on kind of so quickly. I'd love to hear about what you think what you attribute to your success over the years. Obviously, you've come a long way since that first house, but what do you think got you to where you are?
Hunger. Honestly, hunger. Like we grew up poor, and we did not take handouts. I remember in elementary school, all the really really poor kids that would get ice cream because they all got free and reduced lunches, but my parents refused to do that. And so as kids, we knew we were poor. We knew that we shopped at Goodwill. We knew that our gloves didn't fit and our clothes were too small, but yet we knew how to work hard. And so I think that was instilled early on, was really just get out there and go. I mean, what do you got to lose? What are you going to do? Go broke? We already are broke. Like, so I think for me, that's just that fearless kind of like, well, I don't know. I mean, you got to do something to make a living. So go. And I just think that hasn't really left since, those are things that are ingrained early on in life. And I wouldn't trade that for the world. So yeah, I think just being hungry. I'm not hungry today. Well, actually I am in the middle of a 10-day fast. So I am very hungry today. But that's figuratively. I mean that figuratively. Hungry. So yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome. And I know you have a special story about how you got through college and how that kind of influences how you approach life. Will you share that with us?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's always trying to find the fastest way or the most efficient way to get things done. I think this is shared across probably all of your listener base. which is that as entrepreneurs, we don't have time or necessarily or the resources to always go the slow route or want to go the slow route. We want to get things done and we want to get things done now and we want to get them done effectively. So college was an interesting experience. When I sold that business, headed south. So now I'm up to I'm doing tons of fix and flip. We've got other hands in other businesses, and it was always a bucket list item to go to school. So I will tell you that going to school in your 30s is a lot easier probably than going to school when you're 18. Like you just have a lot of real world experience, maybe that you don't have when you're 18. So it's just not nearly as hard. I'll say that. But I went to the University of Memphis. I said, I'm going to get my 4-year degree because it's something I've always wanted to do. Which looking back, I don't know I'd do it again. But I went into the what do they call that? The not the counselor. What's the guidance counselor? Is that right? Do they call it that? Is that the person that like sets out your schedule for you?
I think
I
so.
think that's the name of it. No, there's another name for it. But I went into his office and I said, "Hey, man, what's the fastest, most efficient way to get through a 4-year program, and least expensive? What's the fastest, most efficient, least expensive way to get through a 4-year program?" And the guy sits there and looks at me and goes, "Well, if I were you, I'd just start at the beginning and work your way through." I looked at him. I said, "That's the wrong answer. So I'm gonna come back to you with a plan and we're gonna implement it." And so 21 months later, I was graduating from the University of Memphis with a 4-year degree. And it just takes, I think, some of those things where you go, all right, not taking no for an answer, or when the answer is given, recognizing that there's probably a lot of other possibilities or solutions to that problem. This guy, clearly a career bureaucrat, was always going to sit behind this desk and was always going to make his whatever salary. He didn't care how long it took for me to get through school. It didn't matter to him. And so I just crafted a plan. I'd keep coming back to him and I'd say, "Hey, look, I want to take this class." "Well, you can't take that class until you're a junior. You need to have these classes taken before then." So then I would go and I'd test out of all those other classes and I'd come back and say, "Okay, well, now I've passed those classes," because I'd take the test in like 2 weeks. I figured out that it only took me 2 weeks to, and I'm not particularly bright. I'm just really motivated, right? Like I'm the dumbest guy in the room, but it would take me 2 weeks to study and then pass that test. And so then I'd come back and say, "All right, well, I passed this test." I actually went from a sophomore to a senior in the middle of the same semester. Like I never had a junior on my transcript, because I started as a sophomore and then 6 weeks later I'm a senior. I'm like, "Oh, that's funny," but they haven't had that happen before. So anyway, I think that's just kind of one of those things that, and again, I'm not particularly bright because I'm not, but I think just having that drive and motivation to get things done in an effective and an efficient manner is really important.
Well, I think you might be selling yourself a little bit short there with your comments about not being bright, but that is definitely an amazing story about, just getting something done and figuring out a way. And I think as real estate investors, we often have to, that's part of our what we do is we figure out a way to make it work.
Absolutely. I mean, think about financing. I mean, how many creative ways do we have to finance? I've got two deals working on right now, and it's like, oh wait, this one's screwy. Like this one's not bankable, but it's got a lot of meat on the bone. Like, okay, how are we going to take this down? Well, and I think that's the fun, creative side of real estate that you often get to overlook, and people oftentimes look at that as a challenge, which it is. It can be a real pain when you have a great project and no money. But on the flip side to that, it's fun also to go, okay, wait, we've got an opportunity to make a killing on this if we can find the creative way to get it done. What is that?
Yeah.
So you're going back to that counselor and just saying, well, wrong answer. I'll come back to you with a plan.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I mean, again, it goes back to every real estate investor kind of has that. You have to have that capability.
Yeah, for sure. What advice do you have for folks who are wanting to get into real estate investing?
One, save money. Like have a launching pad if you can. If you can. I know that there's lots of courses and lots of gurus out there that'll tell you, learn how to invest in real estate with no money down, buy your first house for free. Okay, whatever. Like I bought houses with no money down. I've done it. It can be done. Yes, understood. I've paid people $0 for their house. It can be done. I mean, I've used their subject to financing, but in practicality, that doesn't really get you that far that fast. So if you can live below your means and save a nest egg and be willing to invest that nest egg. I think so often people are afraid if they have something to spend it because they're going to say, well, gosh, if I've got 50 grand here, then maybe that's my last 50 grand. But okay, maybe it is. But invest it in something. Make a return on that 50 grand. That would be what I would do, was invest that money into yourself, into your education, into mentors, and really not be afraid to go for it.
For sure. And I know you do investing in parking lots and garages, which is not something that I'm super familiar with. I'd love to hear anything you'd like to share with us about how to make that profitable, what you look for, et cetera.
Yeah, that's a unique asset class. And just to be clear, I don't know when this episode will go live, but I'm not actively buying in that today. It's we're recording this May 11th in 2021, and there is opportunity. Don't mishear me. There's always opportunity. Anybody that tells you there's no deals out there isn't looking hard enough. But for us, we have put buying in that space on hold, simply because when the pandemic happened, parking really took it on the chin. Revenues fell off a cliff, and asking prices for those assets really has remained the same. And so we just found that underwriting became it was difficult before, and now it's impossible. And so we just kind of said, hey, look, we're gonna pump the brakes on that and really put our focus on other assets. So what was your question again? I'm so sorry. I
It
probably
was
just
just talking about garages and parking as an investment class. So how did
yeah.
your parking assets like weather the COVID storm, and what's the future outlook for them?
Yeah, so we unloaded, or I unloaded, me and my investors unloaded everything in January of 2020, which was great timing. Our crystal ball happened to be working. So we sold in January, and we didn't actually own any assets when it happened. There were a lot of deals we passed on.
And
Uh,
what led you to sell in
we
January
just got
2020?
huge asking prices, or we got prices for our assets that just made so much sense. That all
Hmm.
right, it's time to go. So we sold those. Um, But that said, parking in general has not done that great. It just hasn't. I mean, who's going to ball games? Who's going to concerts? Night and weekend traffic. I mean, even your courthouse traffic is weird. So jails and courthouses, typically the parking lots that surround those are great little assets to own. But even those became funny with COVID restrictions getting in. Separation of just everything just got weird. So that is an asset class, though. It's really cool. It's one of the few hands off, truly passive investments that you can make as an active investor. I mean, because you buy it, you plug an operator in, and it's kind of like multifamily, except there's a lot more things that can go wrong in multifamily than there can in parking. Like, let's assume you own a parking lot in a central business district. It's a piece of asphalt. What's it going to do? Flood? Well, just wait till the water goes down. I mean, your insurance is a few $100 a year.
Hmm.
It's just not that complicated of an asset class. So those are fun things that if you can get them underwritten and you can improve the bottom line on those assets, then you're really sitting on something that's a lot of fun, that is very hands off, and that you can really just get an ACH in your account every month and your phone will never ring. And that's a fun piece of real estate to own.
Yeah, for sure. So what assets, after having owned those and then disposed of them at an opportune time, and then watching COVID unfold, what asset classes are you looking at in the near future?
Yeah, we're really opportunistic. So for us, we'd prefer to partner with other people around the country that are doing cool stuff. I'm at the point now where I feel like there's enough lines in the water and enough asset classes that we can come along, bring some industry expertise, bring some capital, bring some other industry partners to the table with us. That makes sense for a lot of operators. So we're looking at multifamily, we're looking at boat and RV storage. I haven't bought an RV park yet. I'm a passive investor in some, but I would like to maybe even look at that as an asset class. We are actively developing boat and RV storage actually on our own. That is one other thing that we're doing right now. And so some of those things like boat and RV deliveries were up like 50% in 2020. I
Hmm.
mean, that's insane.
Hmm.
That's insane. And people got to have a place to park those things. Uh,
Hmm.
most HOAs, most neighborhoods aren't going to let you put a 40-foot motor home in your driveway. So, yeah, I mean, those are opportunities that I'm seeing, and the need for affordable housing just continues to climb. And hate, win, lose, or draw of whatever this administration is doing, irrelevant. They are looking at pumping an enormous amount of money into affordable housing. So that's something else. We just bought a low income housing tax credit, multifamily property, and really looking for more of that, because I think that is a need that we can solve, and I think there's an effective. I haven't found it yet, so don't look to me as the guru. but I'm certain there's an effective way to enter that space and have it where you can present something of value to the people who are living there. So I'm looking at stuff like that as well. Um,
Yeah, I'm curious about that LIHTC property. I was a LIHTC underwriter for the first part of my career, and
oh,
I'm curious. Do you know where you bought it in the tax credit cycle?
tax credits have expired.
Okay.
So, I mean, those have already been spent, but it is still under like the whatever the second period. I think it's 2 15-year periods. This one's under. Does that make sense to you? Or is it 3 10-year periods? I
Yep.
can't remember.
Hmm.
So it's got 7 years left on the rent restrictions that have to meet the low income housing tax credit thresholds. So the cool thing on that deal is that once the LIHTC period is expired, we can obviously sell it as a market rate deal, where people can come in, raise rents, do whatever they want with it. And so that's part of our exit strategy. It's just holding it until that tapers off, and then we could dispose of it, for something that's going to bring more market rate rents.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thanks for your thoughts on that. I'd love to sort of finish up with anything you'd like to share on the topics of mindset slash morning routine. Tell us what has been pivotal for you.
Yes, and I will say, yeah, you're asking me a question that you're bringing up some pain points here, Suja. Morning routine has been a huge deal for me for years and years and years. And it's something that I probably discounted the mindset quite a bit up until, maybe a few years ago when I realized that there are some things somewhere deep down in your psyche. Maybe it's the poverty mentality, coming from, and again, not poverty. We were just very poor. But coming from that, you have those things that you carry with you that are like, wait, maybe that's all I'm ever supposed to be, right? Is poor. Or somewhere deep down your psyche, you will always make sure that you end up living at that threshold or that level of income or whatever it is, because you haven't solved something. You say, okay, this is holding me back. So I think mindset's huge, and really taking the time to dive into your psychology and what it is, why it is that I do what I do, and discovering those is really important. Secondly, morning routine is huge. I used to I get up at 4:45 every day. At 5 o'clock, I was seated from 5 to 5:45. I'd use Hal Elrod's guide. The Miracle Morning is kind of the guide, and then I mixed in a whole bunch of other stuff that was my own kind of creation of things that I wanted to, see happen in my life, even including what my goals are in the short term, what my goals are in the long term, and just reiterating those every day. And that has not happened. That morning routine has happened about 3 times in the last 100 days. We had 3 foster kids show up at our house on February 1st. They're 5, 3, and she was 8 months old, and still no one is sleeping through the night. So even last night from like 2 to 6 a.m., kids are up. And so yeah,
Oh
they're
my goodness.
yeah.
How did that transpire?
Well, we signed up for it. We signed
Okay.
up yeah, we signed up through the Department of Children's Services. We said we'd be foster parents. We don't have kids, can't have kids. We said we'll be foster parents. And so at 8 o'clock one Monday night, they called and said, hey, we've got 3 kids that need a placement immediately. And so 30 minutes later, we had 3 kids in our home. And
Wow.
it's been
That is quite the journey, I'm sure. I don't know how you're still doing all of your real estate stuff.
it is definitely taking, yeah, it's taken a back seat. I mean, that's just the reality of it, because there's 2 things we're trying to do right now: stay healthy and sleep. And sleep is coming in bite-sized pieces. So my morning routine is shot right now, and that's just the reality of the crunch we're in. But at some point, hopefully in the near future, we get these kids situated where they're just functioning as kids should function, because they come from a very trauma background. So it's yeah, just you're dealing with a lot of
Well,
that.
that's such an amazing thing that you're doing for those kids, you and Elizabeth. And so that's just wonderful. I'm curious who you have turned to for, I'm sure that, there's so many people that are helping everyone with their mindset, but is there anyone that's that you follow in particular that's helped you with that?
Not really. I mean, all the major names, you go out there, you read a lot of their books, you read a lot, just you pick up bits and pieces. And quite honestly, just talking, to a lot of other investors and talking to other people that are ahead of where you are. I think that's one of the things that I commonly use is, how did you get there? And that again goes back to the shortcut, if there is such a thing, or maybe the fast track, to college or to real estate investing or mindset or something else. How have you done what you do? And I forget who said it, but success leaves clues.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to follow a lot of the people around me and inside of my peer group that, and just listen in. So nobody in particular.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so much right there, folks. Just so much wisdom, and um, keep at it. Sam, tell us. Love to take a few minutes to just shine the spotlight on you. Tell us how the listeners can find you and anything else you'd like to share.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can find me at the Bricken, but just go to brickeninvestmentgroup.com. That's BRICKEN investmentgroup.com. That's my website. We also have a free how to vet a deal under 10 minutes checklist. It's an awesome guide. It's actually something I use myself, because there's a lot of deals that come across my desk, and I spent an enormous amount of time looking at deals and going, oh man, maybe this works. Maybe it doesn't. Like, yeah, I think I like that area. This guide will help you in 10 minutes decide whether this deal is for you and you should investigate further, or just throw it in the round filing bin. So go to brickeninvestmentgroup.com/checklist, and you can download that guide for free.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Sam. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Suja.